Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with the resignation of a board member. Acknowledge resignation of board member Jennifer Kirkham effective February 25th, 2020. We'll take a motion on that in a second. So
Second.
Justin. I'll do the second on that. Sure. You moved in the second. Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes? Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:01. The agenda is set. And we'll go to presentations, and Nick Job is going to start us off.
I'd like to thank the Board of Education, Mr. Fiskus, for giving me this opportunity to recognize this very distinguished young man. I'm going to have Coach Cinerino come up and talk a little bit more about the specifics, but just as a side note, I had Dylan as a student and have watched him both on the field and in the classroom, and he really kind of epitomizes what scholar athletes are all about. So I'd like to welcome his parents here as well to recognize his accomplishments. So if Coach Mike Cinerino would come up and he can give you the details about what we're recognizing Dylan for.
Sure. Thank you, Coach Langenoff, and thank you, board members. You know, and Dylan had, I don't think you could have had a better year than Dylan did. You know, team-wise, the last 2 years, he's been undefeated, you know, and he has been an integral part of why we were undefeated, why we have back-to-back sectional titles. As a two-way starter, and has done, you know, not just great things on the field, but he's been a leader to our kids and a role model to our football players that are younger and that look up to Dylan. This year individually, though, Dylan has had a tremendous year. Athletically, he was recognized as an all-star. He was recognized as a runner-up for Section 5 Player of the Year, which is an outstanding accomplishment. He was recognized by being a Section 5 All-Star by playing in the Eddie Meath game, which it's our first guy that's played in the Eddie Meath game in a long time. And those were tremendous accomplishments. But what stands out is the fact we always tell our guys, you are student athletes. You know, and that idea of student comes first. And like Coach Langenoff mentioned, nobody epitomizes that more than Dylan. It was very easy to nominate him for awards this year with what he's done throughout his high school career. He has won every academic award that a Section 5 football player and a New York State football player can win this year. To win one of those is an outstanding accomplishment. He was recognized in the fall as the National Football Foundation Gold Scholar Athlete, which only 4 of those awards are given out to athletes at all levels in Section 5 football. He was then later recognized as the Section 5 award winner, which will receive a $250 scholarship tonight. And then he was, a few weeks ago, recognized in Verona, New York as the New York State Public High School Coaches Association Player of the Year for Class D football in all of New York State. So there's only one Class D football player in all of New York State. Those are tremendous accomplishments. You know, great job by Dylan, you know, guided by his parents, you know, and I couldn't think of somebody that is more deserving to win these recognitions than Dylan. So congratulations.
Congratulations.
Now, can I add on to that? Last weekend, you were a double sectional champion in shot put and the weight throw. So it just adds on to that. So congratulations.
Aren't you also on the math team?
Yep.
Right?
And did you say you just got another scholarship from Connor Harris?
Yes. Ontario Mazda
Congress.
Congress at both of them.
Awesome. Keep up the great work.
Thank you.
The next thing I've been asked to talk about is, and Ms. Kelly's going to talk about this with me, is unified sports. And unified sports started in Section 5 about 7 or 8 years ago. And I'll kind of talk about a little bit of what their mission statement is, and Courtney's talk, will tell you a little bit more about the nuts and bolts of it, but this is something we would like to see maybe come to Oakfield-Alabama. Basically what it is, and it's 2 sports right now, they offer basketball primarily, and they're working on adding more bowling, but what it does is it pairs student athletes who have intellectual disabilities with athletes without those disabilities, and they play competitively in the game of basketball. The push of combined sports is to be more inclusive of students with mental disabilities and issues, and get them to participate in a meaningful, standings-bearing athletic endeavor, partnered along with students, the general population. And it is everybody I've talked to that has it, and mostly it's Monroe County schools. There's a couple schools. Holly partners with Brockport, and Kendall partners with Hilton. Everybody I've talked to says it's the best sports program you will have at your high school. They swear by it. The smiles on these kids' faces and their parents' faces with them participating. A little bit of background, for us to start this program, Section 5 will give you a startup money of $2,500 to use towards your coaching stipend, to help contribute. They will take care of the uniforms, and then they bill you back and you pay for your uniforms. It's a 6 to 8 week program that runs in the spring. The only stipulation is kids who are on the basketball team can't be on this basketball team, but any other student athlete can be. They can be in track in the spring and still participate in this. The practices are typically a couple times a week for about an hour. And I'll turn it over to Courtney and let her kind of, because she's had some hands-on experience with this.
Yeah, so when I worked in a district in Section 3, this was brought into our district, so we were first-time, participants in basketball. And that's typically what the schools start with, and then once they're successful in basketball, they move on to having a bowling program. They had a blast. It was challenging to figure out who would be, eligible at the special education level. But onto a court, you typically will see 3 special education students with 2 general education students. It's a great opportunity for those that don't play basketball as a sport to get involved, those who like helping out. It was a really great community, sport. It brought all the families to the gymnasium to watch, which was a really cool thing to see. And it got the whole school involved. The school went to a leadership, the people who participated went to a leadership conference, kind of the background of what should happen during this season, and then they knew what to do. They were kind of trained on, this is how we handle this, and it's real. You play games, you go to a competitive culminating event, okay, where all the school districts are there at the same time, and they're all competing, and there's nice trophies at the end, and everyone gets a t-shirt, and but like you said, everyone's smiling. Everyone's having a great time. Our entire school had made signs for each of the players, and we had a whole event where we filled the whole gymnasium. It was really awesome. I can only show you, I brought a picture of what our culminating event looked like. There's not one person who isn't smiling. They had a great time. I don't know if you guys, to me the picture says it all. The picture really says it all. You get a nice plaque. It's really great to put up in the school. It's a great cause, and honestly, it's funded. That's the best part.
Yeah, Section 5 has really made this easy to start because they partner with Special Olympics, so they're willing to, they're trying to encourage schools, again, about 8-9 years ago when schools were really, starting to get somewhat financially strapped, they valued this program enough to say, okay, we're gonna set aside some funds to start this up for schools if they were even apprehensive. What I hear from the people that are involved with it is not only do the kids with intellectual disabilities benefit, but the other kids are benefiting because they're taking on, as Courtney said, leadership roles, and you know, they're being put in positions that maybe they haven't been put into as student athletes as well. And it just seems like it's you know, in the time when we're trying to be more inclusive and trying to incorporate more and more of these types of things in our school districts and in our society, that this is a perfect example of how kind of everybody can be seen at really, you know, on the same playing field. And it just seems like it would be maybe a great opportunity for us to push forward and be the first school kind of in this area of our league and our region to jump on board with that. So it's something that, you know, we were a little late to the game this year. You know, I had mentioned it to Mr. Fiskus, and then like the next day, Courtney, without knowing that we had spoken, had said, hey, you know, this unified sports thing. I said, wait a minute, you know, it was a coincidence. And we got talking, and I reached out to Section 5, and they started to set the schedule, but then we stepped back and said, you know what, maybe that's okay. We'd like to present it, you know, get our ducks in a row, and that if we get the green light with this, then we can really do a good job of identifying our students who would fit this perfectly, and then give time for kids that would want to be the teammates of them, an opportunity to sign up and get more information from us. And you know, it just seems like a win-win all the way around. And you know, moving forward with your blessing, you know, that would be something that maybe, you know, we'd like to do for next spring.
I truly have never seen community quite like when we had this program. It was incredible, the amount of people who came out and supported this group. It really was awesome.
Questions?
You want your picture? Here. He goes in my bulletin board.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, that was great, thanks for taking that on.
Yeah.
I think Lynn's. Oh, Lynn's. I don't remember the slide order.
So we wanted to just highlight some of our budget initiatives for you, and I'm up first. So one of the biggest things that I'm really proud of for next year is the STEM or a STEAM lab. This year we were able to dabble into that, and Mrs. Cassidy took the lead opposite of her computer classes, and people were able to sign up and enjoy different challenges, and the kids loved it. So the Ready For grant is something that will partner through Genesee Valley BOCES. They will come and give us hands-on training and participate with Tammy in some of those lessons and bring us the resources that we need to really utilize the whole STEAM activity and bringing in this opportunity for our students. Right now, a lot of our STEM challenges typically are done during RTI as an enrichment opportunity. The way I'm kind of thinking and working with our faculty at the elementary school, this would be something that everybody would benefit from. So it would be considered an additional special for us in our rotations so that everybody would have access, which is something I wasn't able to do this year, and that's really on the forefront for next year. The second bullet point that I wanted to talk about, we have talked about how we've been going through our curriculum discussions and really vetting through our resources. And one of the initiatives is the Foundations Kit, and it talks more about our phonics and our phenoms, and we really need to expand that. And this year we don't have it for 2nd and 3rd grade. Next year we will. So we will have it from UPK to 3rd, and that's where the Foundations Kits stop. After 3rd grade, it becomes more of an intervention instead of a resource for the teachers. So we've heard really positive feedback, especially in 1st grade. And their only want was that it was something that they were wishing that the 2nd grade would have and 3rd grade would have. And so that's something that I'm able to fulfill for next year.
So at the middle high school, I threw a lot of things up. I'm trying to paint a picture outside of the typical things, the books, the supplies, and the things that you would typically see on a budget. Some other things that stand out that we think are important to support kids. So our Jacasa partnership is something that we're proud of. They come into our building twice a day. They're pushing out into classrooms as needed. They do some fun activities in the lunchrooms to promote positive choices with the kids. One of the things that helped us tackle is a plan to address vaping and how we can support kids rather than punish them. So that's on our budget. Rachel's Challenge is something we see as really a broad goal that fits under the umbrella of creating a positive climate within the building. So the New York State Education Department says that you have to have an attendance policy, and part of that attendance policy should look at goals for improving attendance. So we've done a lot of things. We have shared data with families. We have sent Mr. Montroy out on home visits. We have done a lot of things, but we feel like the biggest bang for our buck is looking at what we're doing here and creating a climate that kids want to be here. So Rachel's Challenge promotes those things that we're proud of: empathy, leadership, positivity. And by looking at what we're doing here with our kids, they'll take those lessons with them for the rest of their lives. And what we want to do is create a culture where kids know that they're supported here, they know that their classmates support them, their staff support them. Rachel's Challenge is a nice way to lay the foundation for that early in the year. And we're constantly referring to the language and some of the lessons of that day. So we hope to bring that back next year for year 2. Our digital photography class, which was presented to you in the last board meeting, there's some equipment that's needed for that, new cameras up to 10. There's some costs associated with that. Our fitness center might need some updates, some dumbbells. And then academically, you know, we want to be able to support our students after school with tutoring as needed. Edmentum is an online curriculum that we've had some successes and some failures with, but we want to be able to support kids that have medical notes that keep them out of school so we can support them and make sure that their education is uninterrupted. AP exams, I'm proud to say that we foot the bill for those. We have students don't pay for those. We budgeted for that as well. And then our staffing needs, we're doing some awesome things with curriculum this year, things that Connie will expand on. But you know, we have to have money set aside to cover for substitute costs and other professional development opportunities for our staff. So those are some of the highlights of the budget from the middle high school.
So Matt mentioned a lot of the mental health regulations. The commissioners come down and said we need to work on supporting student mental health, and really our vision of it is to do things so that students feel like we are in their corner. We're providing services to support the student in and out of the building and their family. We already have a very nice collaboration with JACASA where they are doing prevention work. They're working with our students in the cafeterias. They're doing things that you might have seen like the hidden mischief on open house night, so that families can see the types of things that our students may be exposed to for substances and how to prevent those in their home. So we're continuing that. We're looking at a Genesee County mental health collaboration, which would bring a satellite office to our campus where students would be able to, instead of going to the other side of Batavia out past the NICEAG building, which is a hike, they could go and get their mental health services done right in our campus. During the school day, they could just walk down there and see their counselor. It would also allow families to get that support if they are in need of that service as well. And then the third thing we're excited to bring to the school is a collaboration with the Centers for the Youth. We're exploring bringing in and I can remember the name, Crisis Prevention and Intervention Specialist. This person would focus on students who are struggling with discipline in their classroom, give them another person to connect to so they feel connected to our building. They'd be restored to practice turnkey trained, so we can start looking at exploring those practices in both buildings. Things that we're really excited to bring forward to support our student mental health and our student connections to our building. Any questions? I'm sorry, any questions on any of those?
All right. So something that I'm working on with my budgeting for next year, of course, is we do have some students that are outplaced in different districts based on their kind of significant needs that we can't really fulfill here on campus. So we have that. We're also looking at the possibility of creating a 12-on-1 classroom in the elementary school for some of our students that are severely academically low. And we're excited that we're also going to be doing the summer boot camp again for our special ed students, which will be a 4-week program, half day. So we'll be able to invite students, and hopefully we'll get, it turned out really well last year, and we're hoping that we'll have that, we won't have that academic lapse over the summer, so we can keep that retention going.
For curriculum instruction assessment, as you guys all know, that this is a new piece to Oakfield that hasn't been there in the past. Most of the budget for this goes towards resources and training. As Lynn and Matt alluded to, we do a lot of work this year with the curriculum. GVEP, we've partnered with them. Teachers take time off to work on curriculum. So what the real focus for next year is going to be to have those resources to be able to support the teachers. Anything from, Lynn was talking about foundations, like is there something that we need fundamentally, to a lot of books, PE, even this year we've got new standards in New York State in physical education, there's new standards coming up in world languages, and those teachers need resources to support them. Training, a big part of the budget probably next year will be for our foundations training. That program, like Lynn mentioned, was something that they had piloted before I even came here. What we've really realized, we've done a lot of digging into the science of reading, and that's something the teachers felt was really working. I felt comfortable with, Lynn felt comfortable with, The piece that I wasn't comfortable with is we need to train them. So that's, next year, we're in the process of talking to Wilson, who is the creators of Foundations, what training might look like. So that is, again, bulk of where my money goes to is resources for teachers and training for teachers.
Hi guys, just emerged from the side here. All right, so for technology, the first thing on the list I have is our annual refresh. We usually replace 2 to 3 to sometimes 4 grade levels per year. We're looking at that now because some new news came out with Google. It used to be 6.5 years of life before a Chromebook expires. We buy a 4-year warranty, so we kind of consider them to be a 4 to 5 year unit. But if they're in decent shape and they're still working and they haven't expired, we keep them for the full 6.5 years. This past Christmas time or so, Google announced that they've changed it to now 8 years. And there's rumors that it might actually go to 10. So bottom line is, when we buy one of these $300–400 Chromebooks, we can have it around for maybe up to a decade, as long as it's in decent shape. We'll continue to offer the optional insurance to families. If they want to do that for $18 a year, they're covered, 0 deductible. They can keep breaking, and no cost at all, and no repair fees. So that is still an option for them. If you go to the next bullet point, Tara, we have also on the instructional side a shift from Schoology to Google Classroom. If you remember, we talked about Schoology a lot when we rolled it out maybe 3.5–4 years ago. It's a learning management platform. It's basically the place where the teachers put their contents, assignments, quizzes, tests, grades, and students can interact with them and turn things in digitally. Without any advocating on our side of, we had Schoology as a paid solution. Google Classroom is a free solution, came out in 2014, and has each year gotten more and more features to make kind of the playing field very even to the paid solutions like Schoology. We found that our teachers went from about 40–50% usage a couple years ago down to maybe about 12% to 15% usage of Schoology that we pay for. So our solution is we're going to pull back from Schoology, paying to have that sync in place, and instead we're going to advocate Google Classroom as a tool that teachers can use. However, the choice is theirs. If they want to still use Schoology, they can. The only difference is it's no longer in sync with our student information system. So as kids come and go and enrolled and unenrolled, the teacher has to manually and subtract them. But not a big deal when you're talking about just a couple kids for the school year. So it's going to save us some money by switching over to Google Classroom, which was the natural progression where people were moving to. Our next point is the Cisco phone system. If you look in this room over there, the black phone on the wall is an old analog style phone. Late 1990s is when those were brought into the district. We were looking to move to what's called a voice over IP phone system. Basically, it's like those of you that had a landline phone at home and now you pay the cable company for your phone, same concept. It goes from analog to digital, gives you more benefits, and in the long run does save money too. It has a larger upfront cost, so we're looking at whether that's going to be part of a multi-year project or where that's going to fit in the future. But right now, I have a couple units in my office. We're testing out the black and white, the color models, with the camera, without, to really give it a go and see how they sound, how they look, to decide on which model to go with. I also went to the Medina school system, which is just north of here, and they rolled their system out about a year ago, and they have a very similar setup infrastructure-wise to us. So they were a good model for us to look at to see the challenges and things that they mentioned that we should watch out for too when we migrate from an analog to a digital phone system. And the last bullet point, the hallway digital signage. Matt came to me with an interesting idea. Walking down the hallway, if you can imagine where the cafeteria is, also where the side where the auditorium is, there are some big kind of poster board, tack board, bulletin boards there. Some of our classes, they make posters, they put them up there, but it kind of takes a lot of work to get that picture just right and cut out construction paper and make signs there. We thought, what if, Matt came with the idea, what if that could be digital? Like take the concept that we're doing now with our couple of hallway signs, but have them focused on one academics, one extracurricular, one just sports, so there's a theme to each one of these signs. That's a place where we could have a lot more of these social media posts up there, video clips from Twitter and whatnot, in prominent places, so that it really gives that branding when someone walks through the hallways. They can see different aspects going on that are refreshed much more frequently. So we look at different screen sizes or whatnot. We have 94 of these units, these ViewSonic 75 inches around the building. We thought, what if we could repurpose one of those from a classroom out to a hallway and have that be a much more, shall we say, impact-resistant, scratch-resistant surface to be out there in the hallway to really make that the focal point of these different zones around the building. So locations have yet to be determined, but it would be for the high-traffic areas where we have parents and community members walking in and out and seeing all the different things we're doing in more of a video format instead of just a paper static format. So that's something we're looking to bring in.
Questions for me?
Thanks, guys. So I just want to say, compliment the administrative team on the turnaround time that they've gotten their budget stuff to me to help us make decisions as we move forward. So as we look at our current budget, all in everything, we're looking at $21,591,038. So we realize there's a budget gap, if you will, of about $324,000. So the governor came out with his budget, and that's the preliminary budget. Typically that's been what you're not going to get less than in terms of foundation aid. And the next slide I'll talk about some of the things that he's done with his proposal. In that revenue estimate, $21,266,000 is a 1% tax levy increase year over year. So these are all preliminary, as I said. That's why you don't have a detailed list of everything that's happening. That's something we have typically done at the end of March, early April, have a budget workshop. You guys are provided the information, and we go from there, and you can ask any of the questions that you have at that point. So this is sort of just a high-level overview of where you're at and what our next steps are for the budget.
So the 1%, what's our tax levy now? 1% yields us how much?
1% is $53,000 in revenue. So in summary, we're looking to say less than 3% budget to budget year in total. And some of the things that we have going on right now, we are negotiating with our teachers. We're still waiting on our final aid runs, and as I was just mentioning, the governor has proposed capping BOCES aid and rolled it up into foundation aid along with some of the other categorical aids, the textbook aid, the software aid, the hardware aid, and making those foundation aid. Something that happened that he hasn't done before, he actually just provided the numbers without them. He gave us that number, but he didn't tell us of his increase, what that equated to in BOCES, what that equated to in our textbook and hardware aid. So we actually had to get that from New York State ASBO, I believe, provided it, and then NYSBA also provided us a spreadsheet. So it kind of falsely made our revenues look slightly more increased because we had an increase in our BOCES expense year over year. So of course, we're going to see what they call the 6% increase, when it really, when you boiled it down, was like a 1.5% increase. So I provided John a spreadsheet last month on that. I can certainly provide that to you as we go forward and look. The legislative budget should be coming out soon, hopefully, sometime soon. Last year, I believe it didn't come out until after April 1st. If my memory serves me right, we were waiting with bated breath. That's why we didn't meet until almost April, or a little bit into April last time. So, like I said, these things are all being looked at. Our tax cap, I'm going to discuss more in depth when I have my report. But the BOCES capital exclusion is another thing on that list. So we had to go file our last year's tax cap again, and then when we filed, we had sort of new numbers to work with on that tax cap. So if the governor pushed through a BOCES aid being rolled up into foundation aid, that would severely hurt us. I think in the end, that would eliminate the need for a BOCES besides students with disabilities, because there's no reason for us to buy Chromebooks from BOCES if we can't get the aid on them. There's no reason for us to buy software through them if we're not going to get the aid on them. And really, it incentivizes us cutting BOCES, cutting our expense, really looking hard at what coasters we're in and saying, gee, we could do that for less money. less money and still get the aid on that initial, because they would draw a line in the sand, here's your year, and then they would give you a slight increase year over year on that. So they're trying to do a lot of interesting things with foundation aid. That's the main aid for schools. And I think it's a little scary because it's kind of been rolled out as the tax cap had. So the governor has been throwing things at the wall and seeing what he can get to stick and using those as negotiating tools when he does pass the budget. So I think we are waiting to see what his next move is. I have heard that the BOCES roll up into foundation aid does not have legs. It would affect a lot of people in our districts in our region, but all over the region. Even BOCES it would affect, because like I said, there's no incentive anymore for you to be using your services in BOCES. So we're waiting for the next legislative budget to come out when they have an agreement. On March 8th, I will be down in Albany. All of the presidents and vice presidents of the local ASRO chapters are invited down. We have a leadership team meeting on Sunday, and then Monday we have a half day, and then we go meet with any of our the government folks that we would want to talk to about passing any of the rules. So I will know more after that point, but I think again we're all just waiting to see what they're going to do.
On the previous slide, are we able to go back?
Sure.
One. So I hear you saying you got to wait for the budget to come out to know for sure. You've got revenues
Yep.
there. So you're saying 53,000 from taxpayers, and how much additional from the state then? Are you anticipating?
We're only looking at like $150,000 foundation aid year over year. What I can do is make sure you guys all get the analysis I did of the state aid budget to budget.
Okay.
And that'll be more in depth for you to look and see exactly what because even the state aid runs that you got initially, potentially from NISBA, I think, they wouldn't have showed you what the detailed breakout was of BOCES increase, of the textbook, of the software. So
Expenditures, staffing, we're saying no changes. We've got 2 retiring teachers, replacing those teachers.
we're
Otherwise,
replacing
no
those
changes.
teachers. Wait, we have 2?
What?
2
We had
teachers.
one in December and.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, Claudia.
Yes.
Yep.
Health insurance, do you break that down? What do you expect that to be increased year over year?
Yeah, I haven't, so based on the way it's been budgeted, there's always been a little bit of a reserve in that amount, just because we're never sure. Somebody could easily get married, have a family. So when we're looking at the cost of a family health insurance of roughly $17,000 at the district's cost, I built some percentage in there. We've been doing well on that, so I feel we can lower that reserve to what we had it before. So they are asking for a 2% increase year over year from the rates from our health plan. So we have built that plus a little bit of extra in there for that.
What's that work out to for dollar amount?
That I don't have the exact dollar amount in front of me, but yeah.
So $325,000 is the work we got to do.
Do the revenues for 2021 include the 1% tax increase?
Yes. Yep. Which is $53,660.
So you're going to come back to this tax cap later?
Yeah, I have the actual cap and the year over year, what we've reported for that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
I do have one question about special ed. Can I ask that?
Sure.
A 12.1 class in the elementary building, would that take the place of students who are now sent out of district, or would that just supply the needs, meet the needs of students?
You would supply the need for some of the students that we have currently. And we think we wouldn't need an additional teacher. We could use one of the special ed teachers we have currently for that position.
And that would obviously be a multi-age
grouping, and are you looking more at a primary or an intermediate, or what would be your age range there? Because it's a pretty tough spot to put a special educator in a 12-1-1.
Right, so that's kind of what we're looking at currently. We're meeting with the school psychologist as well and really looking at all the student data to determine what that span will be, and it'll be based a lot on their annual review meetings that are starting already. So kind of figuring out exactly.
So maybe three grade levels.
It could possibly, yes.
Not more than that.
No,
right,
no.
Right.
You can't have more than 3 years age difference.
Right.
So.
We have some docs avails happening that we're trying to wait for all of that to come into our laps and then really make a decision that's sound for the students. Knowing that some of our class sizes and some behaviorals are part of that conversation because they're academically struggling, and so we see some of their behaviors increase as a result. But by being able to provide them in a smaller class setting, less pressure, less sensory input, we see a totally different child.
Sure, and you can almost use the room too, is where they're there for some period of the day, not the full day.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's the current model we have for the 611 that's in the elementary school. Right. We have students that go out for different parts of their subject day. They don't all collectively go together because it's based on the needs of the student, and we highlight their strengths. And
so we already have a 611?
We do. The 611 is going to be moving up to the middle high school next year.
And do we have any of our rooms currently leased out by BOCES at all? I know some school districts do that, so we don't have any other.
So what would the 12-1-1, how would students progress through that?
Well, we would look at that every year and see what their progress is, and if they can handle, being in the regular classroom again with supports from a special ed teacher, we can of course make those adjustments as needed. That's ultimately always going to be our goal, is to mainstream all of the students.
Any other questions there?
No. I do have a comment though, if you don't mind. I like the idea of the STEM room being a special. I think that you could have the most beautiful science lab in the world, but if it's not embedded into your daily schedule, it will not be accessed. So I think that that's a magnificent, wonderful idea, and I'm very appreciative of it. So thank you very much for doing that.
Very excited about that.
Yeah, I am too.
Okay, be resolved that the minutes of the January 21st meeting be approved. We have a motion. Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Visitors' requests?
No.
Be resolved after an audit of the bills, payment of the February 6th warrants and internal claims auditor reports be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Be resolved that the treasurer's report for January 2020 be approved.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. First reading policy.
So I provided the board with some fun reading over the next few months. Policy number 5676, the privacy and security policy, is a brand new policy that needs to go into effect by July 1st for every district in New York State. This is in requirement of the privacy and security for student data and teacher and principal data. And so really the policy states data privacy and security obligations of districts and third-party contractors. Really, it protects student and employee personal identification information. And so Ed Law 2D is what school districts and the state is calling it, has a variety of new laws set forth to protect students and employees of school districts from personally disseminating student information. The issue comes in is school districts have a lot of third-party vendors. We have EduTech. We do a lot of school platform systems. We have a lot of applications for students. Students sign in with their name and a password and their email address. What this policy now has in place is that the third-party vendors have to abide by certain rights and privacy data for them to latch on to school districts. So this is a new policy that's up and coming. I was very generic in giving you really this is a sample policy because I know down the line things are going to change. As this gets played out and come into next school year, there's going to be additional issues to it. But the state has, made it mandated for schools to have it in by July 1st. We have a new parent privacy, what's it called, Rob? Excuse me, it's the new parent privacy rights. We've already, Bill of Rights that we've already posted to our website. This policy also has every district needs to designate a data protection officer, which is Rob. Rob's been attending trainings, and there's other mandatory trainings that he's going to go to because there's a lot of hoops and a lot of education that he's going to need to bring back to us. And really, there's also needs to be a procedure and policies in place that if the district ever has a ransomware attack, what do we do? We have all of these drills for fire drills and lockdown drills and school shootings. Now we have to have this in case we ever have a cyber attack. So Ed Law 2D was passed in January, and it's on us. So the policy I put in front of you is the sample policy that all the school districts are going to. So have fun reading it.
I think we should have a policy that our policies can't be over 10 pages long.
This was hard to read.
I'm
going to tell you right now.
Right.
Punishment for students, right?
Right.
It was.
Right. Sunday morning when you have your cup of coffee and some eggs.
Do you ever start on these things and you're like, how long is this thing?
When you get to a letter like J under .3, it's like, oh my God. And Rob, I got a question for you, if you don't mind, John. As I was reading through this, I know in a lot of school districts they use like Reading A to Z or RAS Kids or you name it.
Yep.
They're going to have to sign off on this now because they house student data. And are these programs or these apps likely to sign something where they're going to be legally binding? Are they going to?
They already have in other states. New York State is catching up to about a dozen other states that are ahead of us. So companies that deal with all 50 states, they already have language in place for each state, and they knew that this one for New York State was coming.
Because some of these are really nice programs that they have out there that aren't that terribly expensive, and I'd hate to see our district lose out on some of those, because I know we do use those. So it's just one of those things where it's like, is this going to impact even those? To me, I feel they're somewhat trivial.
Yeah. What helps us though is if we buy through BOCES, now BOCES works on the contracts rather than us directly. So having them as a middleman per se, they work out the contracts on our behalf.
Even if it's a free software though, we still have to have a contract.
Right.
It doesn't matter if we pay for it or not, we still have to have a contract that says they're gonna protect that
Like
data.
any app or any
app.
No, I know,
Yeah,
that's daunting to me to think of how many apps we have in our school district here and in any school district. It's a lot, it's a big number. Just seems like, wow, I don't know what to do with it.
We're actually, all of the superintendents, when we meet monthly, we had talked about this, and we were told the first step is to assign a data protection officer. And one of the questions that came up is, what is the skill set? Who is that going to be? Because the first thing they said is, don't have it be like a tech person, don't have it be your tech director. Well, I'm not that technologically savvy to know what's going on. The other administrators have duties, and so we all kind of sat around and said, no, it needs to be our tech director, because when something happens and something needs to be done internally, who's going to have the knowledge to do that? So they did back off of that. So I know Rob for Oakfield, and there are some other tech directors that are part of it, but altogether, EduTech is trying to help districts cope with this, because this is a lot. And so, they had offered services of, do they hire 2 or 3 people to service the districts in this area to help us? Because there's a lot of new laws and regulations that districts are mandated to have. And, again, we're.
That's the APPR, I think, right? The documentation of that for principals, I thought that was
Right.
digital, and it's just so big. It
And
seems
we're
like-
just, I mean, this stuff comes at us like we're flying the plane as we're building it. And so we're all just kind of sitting back and waiting. And then all of a sudden, last month hit, they approved it. So now we're getting inundated with all of this information. And Rob has already been to 2 or 3 seminars on this. And, it's not fun. Certainly it's warranted this day and age, but, as we move forward, we're kind of feeling it out, so.
John, what was the original rationale that they gave you for not having the tech director be the security officer?
Because they actually thought it was a conflict of interest. When this came out and they were concerned about sharing privacy data and student information, well, who's the one person in the district that has access to all of that? It's your tech director. And so they said to not have that person in the loop is probably better. And they kind of pulled back on that because then we started to question, well, who is it going to be? If someone called me and said, we were hacked or there's a ransomware attack, well, guess who's the first person I'm going to contact? It's probably Rob. So we all sat around the table for 2 or 3 months waiting this to happen, and basically they were like, okay, and much smaller districts, districts out in Erie County that do have larger admin teams probably could delegate to somebody else, but really looking at our team, who else would be the person to do that? So
how secure is all our data with Google? What do they retain?
Well, we do have a privacy lease with Google. It's not like it's just out there. Most of the school districts in this area are all the Google platform. But again, moving forward, we need to make sure that more so the third-party vendors, all of the platforms that we use are abiding by these new laws. It's not really something that's going to be a burden on us per se, but we just need to make sure we're dotting our I's and crossing our T's, that when we do party with third-party vendors and EduTech is helping us, and we do have Forecast 5 and all of this information, that it is private, and that the vendor and the parties that we're sharing information with are abiding by the laws. So,
how is the state protecting all the student data it keeps?
I can't answer that.
So the state is requiring as part of this that every time there's a data breach, that you contact the state and tell them. That's part of their requirements. So that doesn't matter if it's one student name or staff name, or if it's 100 student names. So I don't know what they're gonna do with that, because they haven't offered any help.
A lot of the time they put these into place and then react to it.
Right.
So
the other thing that, as John was saying, they rolled out to the business officials too, like, oh, look, we're gonna help you with this data protection officer, and it's only gonna cost you $50,000 a year. And I was like, no. We said at our BOCES meeting, and I was like, that's just not feasible. I mean, when we're a small district. And if you look at the region, same thing for all the rest of them. Like, we're gonna spend that on somebody who we don't know is trained in the correct information, may not have been at school districts, and then how are they gonna know what to do? So those were part of the other reasons that we were in support of not having BOCES and having a Rob, who already kind of has the background, so when he knows about it, then he can sort of reach out to BOCES and they can help assist with what we need, as opposed to having a
BOCES
person.
offered to pay for it or to act
No,
as ours?
No, they were gonna hire the people and train them, and then push them out to us. So, I mean, it fell very bad. Like, the business officials did not like that in the region either. After they finally, I think January is when they told us how much it was gonna cost, and we're like, oh, I don't know about that.
So it'd be like rent a security officer, a tech
It would be
security?
similar to what we do now. We have a half-time tech person that helps us. So it would be, yeah, from BOCES. That would be very similar.
Was their proposal to have it like one person be this officer for several school districts?
Yeah, it was like a .4 FTE or something along those lines. I can't remember what the
Would
exact.
that also be a conflict of interest? Okay.
And so when the dust settles, this is then gonna, trickle down just into the classrooms, that teachers are gonna have to be trained on, making sure that when you're playing a Kahoot game or you're doing things that, the district, and obviously we'll make sure that it's a proper vendor to do those things, but I know down the line, they're gonna be training teachers on not sharing student information, not, and one of the things that came up is, should we be posting grades on a digital platform? Because if there's ever a breach, look at all that information that's on there, kids' names, addresses, grades, so it's gonna be fun. But in the meantime, I provided you that policy because we are supposed to have it in place by July 1st, so it gives you a few months to take your time and read it.
Any other questions on that policy?
And if there's any revisions in the meantime, I'll certainly provide those to you, but that's the first run of the new policy.
Okay, thank you. I think Nicole, we're back to you.
Yes. Tara, I have, in my stuff, I have a link. So first I'm just gonna provide you with a brief update of what I've been working on. They came out with the ESSA guidance, which is putting our account codes into a format, this is the tax cap, so just ignore that for a second. Putting our account codes into a format and then allocating certain district-wide expenditures over both schools, and then having a report that's a per school expenditures, right? So, so I've been working on that. It's been very tedious. I finally received BOCES, according to the law, was required to provide us with their tax cap exclusion number, the way the law was written. So I'm moving on to this tax cap, which I have right here. And so this is So this is our year-over-year tax cap. Oops. So this is where we're at. It's the highlighted column for you on the sheet that I gave you. So our growth rate was 0.0004. So somebody put a shut up in our district last year. And the eligible CPI is 1.81, so we didn't make it to the 2% growth factor that you're allowed. Potentially, this is CPI. And then this is what our current year levy is. We do some adding and subtracting of our pilots, and it comes to a net number. And the most important one that I think is this capital exclusion that we've all, year over year, I've been identifying as an item that, as you can see, it goes across is roughly the same amount. So back in 16, 17, for that budget year, I had just got here, and we had a negative cap that year. So that's what I always talk about with the capital exclusion. What that means is that our expenditures were higher, or were less than our revenues. So every other year, this is our general fund expenditures up here, which would be on the back of your report. This is what we have for debt service, any of our transportation that they consider capital, which would be bus purchases. So this top part is expenditures, and this bottom part is what we've been getting in aid year over year. Some of them are estimates, But as you can see, it creates this thing that we are able to raise taxes for what the district share of the capital levy would be. And all that is the difference between what we get in aid, specifically for building aid, and our transportation that they consider capital, and our debt service. And I always use this transfers from debt service fund. That's a plug figure to be what I want it to be. But if I took that away, it would reduce what that number is on the bottom, which is our exclusion. The reason why we have to keep that flat is every year they reduce that the next year. So last year our exclusion was a little different than this because I had to put I had to change it based on the capital exclusion for BOCES, which they enacted that law. That flows up here as a reduction to what we could have taken in the prior year. Sorry, not that number, this one right here. So if we don't keep this flat or try to turn it around like what happened over here, we're gonna end up in a negative cap situation. You, Matt Lamb, were asking me what our debt is looking like year over year, and I have that right here. So 22, 23, we have debt falling off, and then 2 years later, we have debt falling off.
How much falls off?
So we have about 215 that first year, and then we're looking at roughly 500,000. So my goal is to keep what the increase in that debt is as flat as we can. But these 2 years, we might have a little bit extra in that amount from our capital project that we're proposing that the taxpayers pass in March. So assumably though, we're looking at this, it's hard for me to believe, 2021 is next year's budget. We may not be done in financing until this year, which means we wouldn't start payments until this year. And I have some wiggle room with what we have in debt service to finagle that. Don't forget, this $17.8 million project that we just completed, we had a $1.9 million premium on. So that reduced what we actually had to pay by roughly $1.7 million. So this is where we're at from a debt standpoint.
So the debt that rotates off, that's roughly from 15 years ago, was that, are these?
Yes. This was a refunding that we had. It's actually from a little longer. We refunded it because of the interest rates. They were higher at one point, so then we went back out and got a lower interest rate on that and saved money in both the, no, this is not this one right here.
Are you saying 1 1/4 is our tax cap number? Is that?
Yes. Sorry.
So we can't go any more than 1 1/4.
Correct. And I have some degree of manipulation on this based on the exclusion here. These are the numbers that I can play with right here. This 118. Oops. Basically, that's my plug figure for where we're supposed to be. If I take it away, it makes this number very low and allows us not to raise taxes at all. Which, if we weren't going to raise taxes, I would start to do. Because I don't want to have an exclusion on there. I want to always get more aid than I have in debt service. Which I started working on last year as we put in our budget the buses that we paid for out of the general fund. I know, it's a lot of information to look at and to grasp.
In summary of the last few sentences, we want to make sure that if we do go out to the community and let's say we are going to raise taxes 1%, we want to make sure that the tax cap is near there. You don't want to have a tax cap at 4.5%, where we could go out and say, okay, we can raise taxes 4.5% for a simple majority vote, but then only go out at 1%. So she has a chance to kind of finagle that.
Why wouldn't you want that?
Because
So Lorna, when we say that we can go up to whatever it is, it reduces our next year's ability to raise taxes. So if these numbers aren't flat, it'll reduce the next year's ability to raise tax, which we don't want to do. We want to only basically go up to the cap if we have one based on the exclusion. Because that exclusion changes every year. They recalibrate the interest rates on your debt every year. You don't know if, on occasion, every 3 years, we redo our non-allowable pupil decimal. That changes what you're going to get on your transportation aid debt. So I don't want to have capital exclusion. I want to get more money in aid than I have to spend out in debt. That's my goal here. But we can't do it overnight where we're at. So trying to whittle down that transportation aid bus ban borrowing, adding in the buses as part of our budget, that's where we're going to see those slow movements to that. Having a capital reserve where we don't have to raise taxes on that, where we'll end up getting more aid in than we're making on payments, those are all moves to make towards that, so that this is not even a thing. We don't even have to worry about a capital exclusion because we get more aid in than we have debt service. Make sense to some degree?
Did you get all that?
There'll be a quiz later.
I don't think they ever intend, Lorna, to raise taxes by 4%, but they want to reserve the right to be able to do so in the future and not have their hands tied. We don't want our district's hands tied to only be able to raise by 0.5% because the previous year we didn't manipulate it.
Right. So if like this year is a great example. So here's my first year doing a tax cap. So maybe I should have went back and said, we're only going to raise our taxes 1% this year. So why don't I reduce this amount if I have the ability, which I did, to take this amount out, but not completely knowing or understanding the effects of how this long term would affect us. So as you see, the lower this number, or once it gets negative, we get into the negative cap situation, which we were in back here, which would be okay if we had the aid for that 1 year and could be consistent for the rest of the years. But we really don't want to go backwards. I mean, a 0 is okay, but I mean, because essentially, if it's a one-time deal, you don't want to have that happen. So if we end up in this situation in the future, we want to end up, we would want a negative, a negative for the rest, because it would end up being 0. If your aid is more than your expense, then you have a $0 exclusion.
On your pilot payments, something comes and goes there, where it go from 508, 695 up to 560 and then back down to 508.
Yeah, so this 508, we got an increase on our, what's the name of it? The only pilot that we have. It's the high pressure gas.
Okay, sure.
So they provided us this fancy spreadsheet that was approved by the attorneys, and so that's what I've been using to put all my information in. So long story short, that was an incorrect spreadsheet that they gave me. So we really had one more year at 508. So what they did last year is I just let them have it, and they called me back and said, we'll pay you the 560 this year. So we have one more year of that 508, and then 8
back up to
more years of the 560. Yeah. So they renegotiated with the town, the village, to get higher payments for that as well. So and we have also met with Mark Massey several times on the potential for more pilots. Some of them solar. One of them is an Orleans County wind project that we haven't seen to fruition. We have one turbine, one on the Oakfield-Alabama Central School property lines. So I mean, it would be very little money, but still, nonetheless. So so we have all those in focus, and then just waiting to see what happens with STAMP, which they are always talking about. There's a potential for a pilot there without having an actual tenant, though, last time he told us, because they have a similar situation to the high power gas that they're gonna have when they put it out there. So hopefully more to come on that. So. Any other questions on this? Did that answer your question on the debt?
Yes. I'll refer the resident to you.
Okay. So the other items on my list, sorry. I filed both of our, we had to file an updated tax cap for the BOCES exclusion that they put into law for the 1920 year. And I filed that today. I filed our other one already with a 1% tax levy increase. That doesn't mean that it stays that way. You have to file by March 1st. We can always go back in and edit. So as soon as we know where we're going, we can refile that with the state. And last week I spent a great deal of time verifying in our budget all of the debt, the salaries, and all of the coding for all the rest of the benefits. So I went through and double checked to make sure that there was enough FICA, enough ERS, enough TRS, and then just looking at all of the totals for health insurance, vision, dental, verifying that everybody was in there, double checking where we're at this year to see how much of a surplus we might have, our estimated costs this year, and then just verifying that I think what's built in there is going to be enough for all of the staff that we have for the next year. So that is all I have for you. Brief.
I have a whole bunch of kudos that I'd like to recognize people for, in case the board doesn't know, or the community. Last week, Ryan Steller was the Section 5 Class C3 Coach of the Year. There was a nice dinner for him. There's some tweets out there, but I want to congratulate Ryan. He does an excellent job with our basketball program. Kids love him, and I'm looking forward to their sectional home game this Friday. So congratulations to Ryan for all his hard work. Brianna Smith became OA girls all-time leading scorer, passing the 1,310 point mark last game. So there was a nice recognition for her, and so congratulations to her. Fabulous player, fabulous student. Couldn't happen to a nicer kid, so congratulations, Beetle. The OA cheerleading squad won the Genesee Region Division II championship a few weeks ago, and then placed second at the Sectional 5 Division II C competition. So they've been busy the last few weekends and have come out on top. The championship they won out of 9 teams, and they placed second last weekend out of 18. So fabulous job, girls and Mrs. Gayton. Zach Hall was a 1,000 meter sectional champion last weekend at the sectionals, track and field. So congratulations to Zach. And Nick Munger was the pole vault sectional champion. So congratulations to those guys. We are hosting the sectional girls tomorrow. Tomorrow versus Alexander at 7 p.m. We are also hosting a girls game beforehand. Sodas is playing Pembroke, but apparently Pembroke is just outside the 70-mile radius, but we are not. So they have to move the venue over to our building. So they're going to play at 5:30, and then Jeff's team will play at 7. So good luck to them. Section 5, we did post out there. Section 5 requires that all districts that are hosting a sectional game charge $5 admission, so that's not a district decision, that's a sectional decision. So I don't want to say we apologize in advance, but we apologize in advance. So just prepare for that.
Who gets the money?
Section 5. The
Is that for students and?
Yes, it's for everybody. So the girls play tomorrow against Alexander at 7. The boys play Friday. The team that they're playing plays, or the teams they could play tomorrow night. So that's to be determined. That'll be here Friday at 7 p.m. Again, admission is $5, and I'll be here for that. So good luck to the basketball programs. The musical begins next week, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. It's The Little Mermaid. It's $10 for adults, $8 for students. I'll be attending the Thursday nights program, so we're looking forward to that. The school climate survey that I know the board has been interested in seeing the results. The survey is going to go out, and the window is going to be open from March 9th through March 20th. I met with the admin team this morning. I will put a letter together to send to parents of the district in regards to what they need to do, the links they need to go to, and when the window opens, they have an opportunity to take the survey. The personnel here will be directed by the building principals on taking it during that window, and then obviously the teachers, per the direction of the grade level teams and the building principals, the students in grades 3 through 12 will take it. What that will provide us is a whole bunch of data points as far as student perception of our district. We will have 2 different student data points. One will be more elementary, one will be secondary. The parent will have a parent data point of the climate and culture and their feelings of the school district. And then we'll also get a personnel. When I mean personnel, I mean teachers, cafeteria workers, custodians, bus drivers, everybody that works in the district on their thoughts of the school as well. And it takes about a month to receive the data back, and once I get that back, I'll share it with the board. So looking forward to that. Next Friday, we have a superintendent conference day, so there is no school for students. The morning, teachers will spend time at their grade level teams in their curriculum groups with the support of GVEP and Connie and the administrators from about 8 to 11. They'll spend the time to continue to work on their curriculum development. One of the things that we are hearing is, time is of the essence. So we're going to plan that morning to continue with our good work. And congratulations to Connie for driving all that. You've done a fantastic job. Teachers are on board. It is a lot of work. We understand that, but we're going to reap the benefits in the end. So, and I just want to thank the teachers because they have spent so much time, and it's kind of like, okay, what are we doing here? And it's, but we're full speed ahead, and the teachers are doing some excellent work. So again, we're going to spend the morning providing them time to work with our GVEP representatives and the administrative staff and continuing the curriculum development. And in the afternoon, after we provide lunch for them, we have a guest speaker. World-renowned Jack Berkemeyer is coming from 12 to 3. If you have the time that afternoon, we'll be in the high school cafeteria. You don't want to miss him. He is fabulous. He's on Twitter. He is all over the country. The reason we were able to bring him here is that week he is spending his time in Williamsville, and so I was able to snag him for Friday afternoon to come and talk to our staff. So looking forward to that. Certainly he will be very entertaining, but it'll also be a lot of good stuff for our teachers to hear. So if you're able to pop on in, please do. And on a sad note, this afternoon we received, I had mentioned to you before there were about 5 superintendents in which we kind of initiated an SRO grant. There's a COPS grant out there that could help fund SROs within regions and within school districts. So myself and 4 other superintendents met with Sheriff Sharon, and really the grant needs to come from their agency. And we received word actually this afternoon that to continue on with this possible grant, which is very competitive, that the 5 schools needed to prove and share their budgets that their SROs would be cut for a grant that more than likely we would not receive, because it's very competitive. We didn't know that that was a step to this grant writing, so we all backed out. We're not at that point to say that at this time we are cutting our SROs. So that grant is a no-go. So that was one of the qualifications to move forward. And we were unaware of that. So that's all I have.
You mentioned about survey. I saw on Twitter that Byron Burgeon sent out a survey to, I guess, whoever for their budget rankings. It was 10 questions, Survey Monkey, ranking things of importance. Might be something, probably not for this year, but the following year. It looked interesting to me. They don't do it in the format of, somewhat important, not important. They do it in rankings. So we're talking about class sizes, academic
Like a 1 to 10,
programs,
a 1 to 10 type of deal.
So they make you say which one of those do you least value, which one do you most value.
I'll get in touch with Mickey and see what that was about.
Yeah,
sure.
It looked interesting. I don't know how they guard that to make sure I don't fill it out, because it seems like I can fill it out if I want to.
Okay.
Any questions for John? All right. Thank you, John. New business, be resolved that items 8.2 through 8.5 be approved via consent agenda.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. Communications, most of the normal stuff, and a letter from Steve Hawley that I passed that direction, thanking us for the position of the HPV letter. I can send it this direction. And that is it.
If I could just mention something, Mr. Lamb, I can pass around. We met with SEI and DGA this afternoon. The district flyers, the district residents went out, I think, late last weekend,
Yes.
and I believe the residents received them. With that, they are also producing 3 big, tall, 6 to 7 foot banners for us. This is what the banners will look like. They should be here tomorrow afternoon. We will place those in high traffic area, more so obviously for the musical and the sectional games being played here. And then throughout the day, we'll have one at the elementary and up here at the middle high. So basically it's just advertising, the capital project. And we'll have those, displayed throughout the buildings at events until the vote.
Okay. Discussion roundtable. Didn't have anything submitted. Committee reports. Has anything occurred there? Instructional technology. Anything there? Lorna?
The committee met today. I was there for the last half of it. There was an interesting presentation that seemed to intrigue the 3 elementary teachers that were there. And that's it.
For safety, we've got Tim on that. Tara, unfortunately, Tim wasn't feeling well, so he wasn't able to be here tonight.
Are you going to replace Jen on the health and wellness?
Can we wait until the next rollout of the next board?
Absolutely.
How would we do that? Code of conduct.
Privilege be.
Great. Personnel, be resolved items 11.2 through 11.8 be approved via consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes. On retirement, acknowledge and accept the retirement request of Diane Schultz from the position of elementary teacher effective June 30th, 2020. Get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Wish her good luck. Schultz
Thank
been here all.
Thanks.
Congratulations on a good career.
34 years is a lot.
It sure is.
Yeah, it was a nice letter that she wrote. Thank you for everything she's done.
Yes, it's my time here. She's been nothing but a stellar teacher, stellar person. We've gotten along great, and sad to see her go.
It's a bittersweet moment.
Yes, with regret.
Sounds like she's open to coming back every once in a while.
She is. She's begging for like a coaching position of some sort and all kinds of things. She keeps dropping little hints to me every time she sees me at lunch.
We'll see her September 7th.
Yes. Sign her up.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Be it resolved, the Board of Education enter executive session at 7:20 for the purpose of OATA negotiations as well as employment of a particular employee. A motion? Moved. Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes.